So someone just paid $15 for a folded piece of paper. Like just a piece of paper that used to sit inside a 1987 INXS cassette tape.
Wait, just the paper, not the...
Yeah. To be incredibly clear about this, they did not buy the tape. They didn't buy the music.
Oh, wow.
They just bought the thin cardboard slipcase that, tells you the name of the album.
That is, I mean, that sounds completely absurd on the surface, doesn't it?
Right. It makes zero sense.
Mm-hmm.
But today, we are looking at a 34-item eBay sales ledger from June 2026. It was uploaded by a YouTube channel called 5150patient. And we're going to figure out exactly why someone would do that.
Yeah, because a ledger is usually, just an accounting exercise, money in, items out.
Profit, loss, shipping fees.
Exactly. But if you know how to read the data, an itemized sales list from an everyday secondhand seller is, well, it's actually a diagnostic tool.
It really is.
It reveals the often irrational architecture of human desire.
Which is exactly our mission for this deep dive. We are not just going to read a list of 34 random items.
Right.
We are going to deconstruct this ledger to uncover the hidden psychology of the secondhand market.
Like, what does society actually discard?
Yes. What do everyday people truly value behind closed doors? And, how much cash are they willing to part with to bridge the gap between those two extremes?
It's a lot of cash, usually.
It really is. Because whether you are listening to this on a commute or sitting in your living room, you are surrounded by objects. And this deep dive is going to fundamentally change how you view the clutter in your own home.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with a category that honestly completely upends how we usually think about modern consumerism.
Right.
I am talking about the spare parts market.
What's fascinating here is the sheer volume of isolated, hyper-specific components moving through this single ledger.
Yeah.
We often hear this overarching narrative that we live in a completely, disposable society.
They just throw things in the landfill the moment they break. Exactly. But this data points to a robust, almost underground component economy that is quietly thriving.
You are seeing people hunting for isolated pieces. Like on June 3rd, a genuine Dyson muscle head.
Just the head.
Just the vacuum cleaner head. It sold for $55.
Wow.
Right. And then on June 18th, a Foxtel IQ2 remote went for almost $17. But, okay, my personal favorite.
Oh, I know which one you're going to say.
On June 24th, 2 genuine Miele oven control knobs sold for $24.99.
2 plastic knobs.
It's incredible.
I want to look at the mechanics of this because I think it pushes back hard against that throwaway culture narrative. When I see someone paying $25 for oven knobs, I immediately think of the ship of Theseus.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. Like if you replace the heating element, the door hinge, and now piece by piece via the internet, you replace the control knobs, is it even the same Miele oven?
Probably not.
I think this proves people are actually desperate to repair rather than replace. They are, but it's a desperation born out of a very specific economic reality. Let's think about how this disaggregation economy actually functions.
Okay.
A new Miele oven is a multi-$1,000 commitment. Buying 2 replacement knobs for $25 is an incredibly rational defense mechanism against forced obsolescence.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But the mechanism that makes this possible is completely unique to the digital age. It requires an algorithm capable of matching the ultimate needle with the ultimate haystack.
Because the seller had to actively decide to dismantle the appliance rather than sell it whole. Like, that's a choice.
Let's follow that thought. A seller looks at a broken or discarded oven. They recognize that selling the entire broken 200-pound metal box is a logistical nightmare.
With zero profit margin.
Zero. But taking a screwdriver, removing the knobs, the motherboards, the racks, and listing them individually,
Oh, yeah.
that transforms a single piece of junk into 10 discrete, highly shippable assets. The seller capitalizes on disaggregation because the sum of the parts is mathematically more valuable than the whole.
And then the algorithm has to find the one single person on planet Earth whose oven is perfectly functional, except for those 2 specific knobs.
Exactly.
The sheer friction involved in this is incredible. Like, the seller has to inventory, photograph, and list a piece of plastic.
Yep.
And the buyer has to spend their evening typing specific serial numbers into a search bar, just hoping a stranger on the internet bothered to salvage their exact part. It is an act of defiance against having to buy a whole new appliance, yes, but it is a labor-intensive defiance.
It is labor-intensive, but, the psychological payoff for the buyer is immense.
Really?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
When you finally find that obscure Dyson vacuum head or that specific Foxtel remote, you aren't just buying plastic, you are purchasing a sense of triumph.
Oh, I see what you mean.
You solved a problem.
Yes.
You outsmarted the retail ecosystem. The secondhand component market thrives on dispensing these little hits of dopamine to people who just refuse to let their household appliances die.
That desire for control is a perfect bridge into the next set of data. Because if we are seeing people spend money to meticulously take control of their failing appliances, we are also seeing that desire for control turn completely inward.
Yeah, the wellness stuff.
Exactly. Looking at this ledger, people aren't just trying to repair their homes, they are desperately trying to repair themselves. Let's look at the wellness and instruction category.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the sheer financial premium buyers are placing on physical instruction in a digital world is striking.
The numbers are incredibly high. Right at the top of the month, on June 1st, a book called Laugh with Health by Manfred Koch sold for $44.87.
Wow.
We are talking about a paperback book, listed in good condition, fetching almost $45.
That's a huge premium for a used paperback.
Right. And then on June 14th, Medical Medium Liver Rescue by Anthony Williams sold for $29.99. We also see foundational instruction, like an Oxford Concise Color Medical Dictionary for almost $30, and 2 Murdoch books on growing vegetables bundled for $25.99.
We really need to ask why someone would pay nearly $45 for a used paperback about health when they hold a smartphone capable of accessing peer-reviewed medical journals and infinite free gardening tutorials right in their pocket.
Yeah, why do that?
It comes down to how we process physical versus digital information. Digital information is ephemeral. It feels infinite, which paradoxically makes it feel less authoritative. A physical book is bounded. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
So it's the physical manifestation of a solution.
Exactly.
Like I can bookmark 100 articles on liver health, and they just live in a digital void on my browser, inducing guilt.
We all have those tabs open.
So many tabs. But if I buy the Medical Medium book, the transaction itself feels like taking action.
That is the placebo effect of commerce.
Oh, I love that phrase.
Purchasing the book gives you a premature sense of agency. You are buying the feeling that you are actively taking control of your health even before you read page 1.
That is so true.
The premium paid for these physical books shows that society still views the printed word as a definitive stabilizing authority in this chaotic information landscape.
But let me pose a theory here, looking at the actual condition of these items.
Okay.
Because the growing vegetables books, listed in good condition. The Good News Bible that sold for $21.99, good condition. And here's the one that really stands out to me. Rocco Asano's Home Weight Training sold for $20.99.
Let me guess.
Also in good condition.
Yeah, of course it was.
If you think about it, a truly utilized weight training book should be destroyed.
Oh, absolutely.
The spine should be cracked, the pages should be dog-eared, there should be sweat stains all over it. Does the fact that these self-improvement books are constantly circulating in the secondhand market in such pristine shape imply that we're essentially just trading our unfulfilled goals with each other?
You were describing the phenomenon of identity signaling even when the only audience is ourselves.
Right.
The physical condition of a self-help book is often a perfect, tragic mirror of human aspiration versus actual follow-through. It is the gym membership effect, bound in paper.
Think about the last time you, the listener, bought a highly ambitious self-help book. Did you read it cover to cover, or is it sitting on your nightstand right now, just radiating potential?
When a buyer purchases home weight training, they are not buying a set of instructions. They are buying the identity of the person they want to be.
The master gardener.
The home fitness expert. The perfectly healthy eater. They put it on the shelf, and its mere presence signals to them that they are the type of person who cares about these things.
But actual implementation requires discipline.
Exactly. So the book sits there entirely untouched, maintaining its good condition until the owner eventually decides to declutter. They sell it back into the ecosystem, passing that exact same pristine aspiration on to the next buyer.
We are literally buying someone else's abandoned future, which is fascinating because while some buyers in this ledger are paying top dollar for future aspirations, another entirely distinct group is paying a massive premium to reclaim their past. Here's where it gets really interesting. We need to talk about nostalgia, and we need to talk about that $15 piece of paper.
The 1987 INXS Kick Cassette Inlay Slip sold on June 26th.
This one fundamentally breaks my brain. To me, buying an inlay slip without the actual music cassette is exactly like buying the empty wooden frame of a famous painting, hanging it on your wall, and telling your dinner guests you own a piece of fine art.
That's a hilarious image.
Right, because you don't have the art, you don't have the music. I can only assume this is about the pain of an incomplete set. It's completionism taken to an irrational extreme.
It is completionism, yes, but it is driven by how nostalgia fundamentally warps our perception of intrinsic value. In a traditional market, intrinsic value is based on utility.
And the utility of an album inlay slip without the cassette is absolutely zero.
Right, zero. But in the secondhand collector's market, value is based on emotion, memory, and the psychological burden of a void in a collection.
A void that demands to be filled.
Imagine the buyer for a second. They likely have the original cassette of INXS's Kick, which is an album deeply tied to their memories of the late 80s. But somewhere along the line, the paper insert was lost.
Which happens all the time.
Sure. And to a non-collector, the tape still plays music. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah.
Exactly. But to the collector, the object is naked. It is historically inaccurate. It is a daily, physical reminder of a fragmented past. That $15 isn't a purchase. It is a ransom paid to the universe to restore order and purity to their personal timeline.
It's a localized time machine. And this desire to reclaim history extends to the heavier artifacts on this list, too. Take the Moore's 1100 Driver's Passport Service Handbook that sold for almost $40. The seller noted it as an extremely rare item. The people buying a service handbook for a mid-century British family car are not using it to change their oil on a Tuesday.
No, they are buying a tactile connection to an era. The internal combustion engine might be obsolete soon, but that handbook is physical proof that a specific era of mechanical simplicity existed. And notice how the concept of rarity changes the buyer's behavior in these transactions.
Oh, the baggy comic is the perfect example of that behavioral shift. It's a very rare May 1978 comic that sold for $24.95, a completely reasonable price for a vintage single issue.
Sure.
But the buyer eagerly paid an additional $9.99 for express shipping. They paid nearly 40% of the item's total cost just in shipping fees. I have to wonder why the rush. This comic book has been sitting in a box since the Carter administration.
It survived a lot.
It survived the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. What is an extra 3 days in the postal system going to hurt?
It's an anxiety tax.
An anxiety tax.
Yeah, the secondhand market is driven by manufactured scarcity. When you buy a pair of socks from a major retailer, you know they have 10,000 more in the warehouse. If it gets lost in the mail, they send another.
Right, no big deal.
But when a collector spends years hunting for a very rare 1978 comic, the digital transaction at checkout doesn't actually relieve their anxiety. It heightens it.
Because now it's out there in the wild, sitting in the back of a delivery truck.
Exactly. The transaction doesn't feel complete, the dopamine loop doesn't close until the object is physically secured in their hands. That $10 express shipping fee isn't about getting to read the comic faster.
Obviously not.
It is purely about minimizing the window of time where this irreplaceable artifact could be destroyed by a careless mail carrier. They are buying peace of mind.
So if the value of a seemingly useless paper slip is dictated entirely by a buyer's emotional need for completion, and the value of a comic is driven by an anxiety of loss, it naturally forces us to look at the most subjective mechanism in this entire marketplace.
Which is?
The way we define a flaw. This ledger exposes how bizarre our cultural touchstones around condition actually are.
This raises an important question regarding how a decentralized market establishes a shared reality. In retail, an item is new, or it is defective and returned. In the secondhand ecosystem, condition is a highly negotiated communal agreement.
And the rules of that agreement are wild.
Oh, they really are.
Let's look at the absolute biggest financial transaction of the month for 5150patient. On June 30th, a Harry Potter book bundle sold for a massive $75.99. These were first Australian editions, hardcovers of books 4, 6, and 7, listed in good condition. High demand, beloved franchise, early editions. The high price makes total sense.
A standard premium for cultural significance.
But then we contrast that with a book called Born in 1966. What Else Happened by Ron Williams. It's a niche book of Australian social history. It sold for $19.99.
Okay.
But the seller explicitly noted that it had to be downgraded to acceptable condition. And the stated reason for the downgrade.
Yeah.
Because it was personalized. A previous owner had written a dedication inside the front cover.
Someone took a pen, wrote a gift note, and signed their name.
And I really struggle with the logic of the collector's market here. Why is a previous owner's personal inscription considered damage? To me, that is a unique piece of human history. Someone loved this book enough to give it as a gift, to write a thoughtful note on a specific date in the past.
Yeah, it adds a whole new dimension.
Right. Why doesn't that give the object character? Why doesn't that prove its utility and increase its value as a sociological artifact? We are talking about social history here.
From a purely anthropological standpoint, you are absolutely right. The inscription adds narrative layers. But the traditional collector's market operates on a deeply ingrained illusion.
What illusion.
Value in collecting is intrinsically tied to proximity to the object's original manufactured state. When you buy a pristine secondhand book, you can maintain the psychological illusion that you are the first and only true owner of the story.
The book belongs to you and only you.
Yes. An inscription breaks that illusion violently. It is a permanent alteration made by an unauthorized person.
Oh, wow.
It forces the buyer to acknowledge that this object had a rich, emotional life completely independent of them. For a collector, an inscription isn't a story. It's graffiti. It's a reminder that they are just a temporary custodian of the object, not its ultimate destination.
It's like we want our secondhand items to have amnesia. We want the discount of it being used, but we want it scrubbed of any memory of its previous life.
Unless, of course, the person who applied the ink was famous.
Oh, true.
If J.K. Rowling had personalized that Harry Potter bundle, the value wouldn't be $75, it would be thousands of dollars.
That is the ultimate paradox. It's not the chemical alteration of the ink on the page that ruins the condition. It is the lack of celebrity of the person holding the pen. We commodify the signature of a stranger only if society deems that stranger important.
Which brings us to the core thesis of this entire ledger. Whether we are analyzing a pristine 1996 hardcover of the Cook's Companion selling for nearly $50, or a downgraded, personalized history book moving for $20 value, is never an objective scientific measurement.
It really isn't.
It is a communal hallucination. It requires a seller to accurately describe an item using a rigid set of unwritten, agreed-upon rules, and a buyer who implicitly accepts the philosophical premises of that categorization.
It is a massive decentralized dance of trust. Millions of strangers agreeing on what a crumpled piece of paper or a scratched plastic knob is worth on any given Tuesday.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? When we zoom out and look at the entirety of 5150 patients' June 2026 ledger, all 34 of these seemingly random transactions,
it means that the internet has created a microeconomy for absolutely everything. From manga volumes like Demon Slayer moving for almost $40 to an Australian motoring guide from 1995 pulling in $17. The overarching market is unbelievably broad, but the individual demands are razor-thin, hyper-specific, and deeply personal.
I think the biggest takeaway for us today is that an eBay ledger is far more than a spreadsheet. It is a real-time map of what it means to be human. We have the absolute grinding practical necessity of keeping our modern lives running, represented by the diligent, desperate hunt for Miele oven knobs and vacuum cleaner heads.
We have the aspirational desire for self-betterment and the need for physical authority, locked away in pristine, unread copies of Laugh with Health and Medical dictionaries.
And we have the profound, entirely irrational, deeply emotional pull of nostalgia, the drive to reclaim fragmented pieces of our past, whether it requires paying an anxiety tax to rush deliver a 1970s comic book or paying a ransom for a seemingly useless paper cassette slip to make a 1987 memory whole again.
It proves that value doesn't reside in the object itself. Value is wherever human emotion decides to place it.
So for you, listening to this right now, I want you to take a second and actually look around your room. Look at the shelves behind you. Look at the clutter sitting on your desk. That obscure, slightly cracked remote control sitting in your junk drawer. The personalized, battered history book tucked in the back corner of your bookcase.
Everyone has something like that.
You might look at those things and see useless clutter. But the mechanics of this ledger prove that those exact items might hold significant, tangible value to exactly one person out there in the world who is typing a serial number into a search bar right now, actively hunting for them.
Which leaves us with a rather profound final thought to mull over as we wrap up. We began this deep dive by talking about how society decides what to discard and what to hold on to. But look at the sheer breadth and extreme specificity of what actually found a buyer in this one tiny ledger.
Yeah.
If every single item down to a standalone, intrinsic, valueless piece of cardboard or a single plastic vacuum component has a highly motivated buyer on the internet willing to pay real money for it, does the concept of junk even exist anymore?
Wow.
Or is everything in our homes Every single object we currently consider throwing away, simply dormant inventory, just resting there, gathering dust, waiting for the right digital algorithm to match it with its perfect, desperate future owner.
Now, that is a thought that will make you think twice before you ever throw anything in the trash again.
Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it, and I'll see you in the next video.